by the door, a sacred object. Where is it? Jeanette's voice was a low, dangerous hiss. Where's what? Jack asked, emerging from the kitchen with a wooden spoon. The envelope, Jack. The rent money. It was right here this morning. Jack walked over to the shelf. It was empty. The transistor radio that usually sat beside it was also gone. Oh no, Jack whispered. We've been robbed. Robbed. Chrissy cried, coming out of her room. But the door was locked, I think. Or did I leave it open for the mailman? Panic seized the apartment. They checked under the sofa. They checked the freezer. They checked Jack's gym bag. Nothing. This is it, Jana said, sitting down heavily. We're out. Roper is going to throw us into the street. We're going to be living in a cardboard box on the beach. Maybe I can get a loan, Jack suggested. The university has a financial aid office. I'll go there. I'll tell them a sob story. Tell them you have to weak. Starving girls depending on you, Chrissy suggested. And maybe that you're pregnant. I don't think that'll work, Chrissy, Jack said, already grabbing his jacket. Jack's trip to the university was a disaster of bureaucratic proportions. He sat across from a Mr. Travers, a man who seemed more interested in Jack's living arrangements than his financial need. You live with 2 girls? Mr. Travers asked, his glasses slipping down his nose. Yes, sir, but it's very professional. We're just roommates, like siblings. Very, very broke siblings. And your father, what does he do? He's a minister, Jack said, hoping the truth would lend him some moral credit. And his income? About $6,000 a year. Mr. Travers sighed. I'm sorry, Mr. Tripper. According to the guidelines, you aren't a hardship case. You're just average. Average? Average doesn't pay the rent. Average doesn't keep Stanley Roper from changing the locks. Jack returned home defeated. The situation had grown even more dire. The police had been called a grumpy officer who took one look at the apartment and decided the robbery was a fake. Nobody leaves $300 in an envelope marked rent on an open shelf, the officer said. Next time you want to skip town, think of a better story. But it's true. Chrissy wailed. We're that stupid. The clock was ticking. It was 6 o'clock, the hour of reckoning. Stanley Roper would be at the door any second, his hand outstretched, his face set in its usual where's my money scowl. Let's hide, Jack said. The pub. We'll go to the pub and stay there until he falls asleep. They grabbed their coats, but before they could reach the door, it swung open. Stanley Roper stood there, but he wasn't scowling. He was wearing his best shirt, and Helen was behind him, looking radiant. Hold it. Nobody's leaving, Stanley barked. The trio froze. This was it, the eviction. Look, Mr. Roper, Jana started, her voice trembling. We can explain about the money. I don't want an explanation, Stanley interrupted. I just want a yes or no. Are you coming to dinner with us or not? The roommates stared at him. Dinner? Jack asked. Yeah, Helen chirped. It's our way of being neighborly. Stanley felt bad about, well, everything. And since you already paid the rent, we figured we'd treat you. Since we... What? Johnny gasped. Stanley looked confused. The envelope. On the shelf. Yesterday, when I came up to fix your sink, it said rent, so I took it. I put the receipt in your mailbox. Didn't you see it? The trio looked at each other. The missing money, the robbery, the police, the Jimmy J. cake. You took it? Jack asked, a hysterical laugh bubbling in his throat. Of course I took it. You think I'd leave $300 lying around where any crook could grab it? You kids are lucky you got me looking out for you. Jack leaned against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor. Johnny and Chrissy followed suit, the tension leaving their bodies in a collective wave of relief. You okay, Jack? Stanley asked, peering down at him. You look a little green. I'm fine, Mr. Roper, Jack wheezed. I'm just experiencing the joy of neighborliness. Good. Now let's go. I'm starving. And Jack, don't forget your steel plate. I don't want you short-circuiting during the appetizers. As they walked down the stairs, the trio shared a look of silent understanding. Their life was a mess of misunderstandings, close calls, and constant deception. But as they followed the Ropers out into the cool California evening, Jack realized that as long as they had each other and a landlord who was just as confused as they would be just fine. After all, 3 was company, and in apartment 201, company was exactly what they needed. Epilogue: the sunset over room 201. The months followed a familiar pattern. There would be more cousins visiting, more cooking disasters, and more elaborate schemes to keep the secret of Jack's presence. But through it all, the bond between the 3 of them deepened. Jack Tripper continued to refine his soulfuls. Johnny would continue to balance the checkbook with a heavy heart and a sharp pencil. And Chrissy Snow continued to brighten the world with her unintentional wisdom. And downstairs, the Ropers continued to bicker, a soundtrack of enduring, grumpy love that provided the foundation for the house. In the end, it wasn't about the rent money, or the hidden pets, or the heroic lies told in dark pubs. It was about the moments on the blue sofa, the shared laughter over burnt toast, and the knowledge that in a world full of freaks and weirdos, they had found a place where they truly belonged. As the lights dimmed in Santa Monica, the sign of the Regal Beagle flickered to life, and the chronicles of apartment 201 continued, one ridiculous misunderstanding at a time. The end. 3's Company, the Santa Monica Chronicles, a novelization of the classic sitcom adventures. Chapter 1, The New Yorker and the Jailer. The sun over Santa Monica didn't just shine, it glared with a persistent, golden intensity that made the stucco walls of the apartment complex on 201 North Rossmore Avenue feel like they were vibrating. Inside apartment 101, Stanley Roper was experiencing a different kind of vibration, the rhythmic, Sharp snip-snap of his wife Helen's emery board. Be quiet, Helen, Stanley hissed.